Okay. So again, especially for the several people who were absent last week, you want to pay close attention to this. So this is what we call equal values method. We got these two equations, and you see how they both have y equals. Can you get your packet out, please? Let's get this going. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to take that thing and that thing that are both equal to y, and I'm going to make an equation out of it. So it's going to have this first, and then equal to the other one. That's the key step. So that's step one, is to combine the equations. Let's go ahead and annotate this. Step two is the part that takes the longest. I'm going to solve that. So when we solve, we look for parentheses, which we don't see. I look for like terms I can combine. I don't have any like terms I can combine. Remember, we cannot combine across an equal sign. I also look for variables on both sides, which we do have, so we need to deal with that. Do y'all want to get rid of the 8x or the 4x? I'm thinking the 4x. Let's do minus 4x on both sides. Good morning. Thank you very much. We're on lesson 4 in our packets. All right, we still need to keep working to get x by itself here. I would get rid of the 18 next. It's a plus 18, so I'm doing minus 18 on both sides. Six minus 18. And then we just need to get rid of that 4. It's multiplying, so we'll go ahead and divide to get that out of the way. Get x equals, it's going to end up being negative 12 divided by 4 is 3. So this was the combine step, and then all of this was solving. Now we're not done yet. We got a little bit more work to do. So because these equations have x's and y's in them, we need two answers. We need both an x and a y. So we did find half of our answer. Half of our solution is x equals negative 3. But I also need to know what y equals to know the final complete solution. So we need one more step here. So in our third step, we're going to pick one of these original equations. And it doesn't matter which one, pick the one that looks easiest to you. I usually go for the one that doesn't have negatives, if there's one without negatives, because negatives sometimes make me make mistakes. Or in this case, I'd probably go with the bottom one because it has smaller numbers in it. So pick the one that's going to look the most efficient to you. We're going to take that equation and we're going to rewrite it, but we'll leave out the x. So see how I left a blank parentheses there where the x used to be? And for those who haven't been here, I know those who have been here know what we're going to put in here. For those who haven't been here, what do you suppose we're going to put in this blank parenthesis in place of the x? We're going to put the negative 3 in there because we figured out that x was negative 3. So we'll stick that negative 3 in there in place of the x. Thank you. We're on lesson 4 in our packets. And now we have an equation that we can use to solve for y. So let's just simplify this. 4 times -3 is -12. And -12 plus 6 is, that's the same as 6 minus 12. That would be -6. Now we know the other half of our solution. Okay, and I should annotate this. This is our third step here. And what we're doing here is substitute. So the one that says less than 3 at the top, yeah. All right. So a couple people that weren't here last Thursday when we went over this, what do you think? Are you feeling pretty decent about this? So that's what you missed. The key step is to take your two equations and put them together with an equal sign in between them. From there, you know how to solve. This is nothing new. We spent all last semester doing this. And then also remembering that once you get your x value, you still have to find a y value. But this is like the easier part of the whole process. The hardest part, or the most time consuming, is probably the solve part, the second step. Okay, so I need everybody's attention now, because what I'm going to show you today is a little bit new. It's the same idea, but we're going to do some more complicated problems. So we're going to jump into these in a second, but look down at the bottom of the page, example 1 and example 2. These look a little bit like the problems that we've been working on, but what's different about these problems? They have fractions in them. Anybody here a big fan of fractions? Does anybody love fractions? Is anybody here mildly annoyed by fractions? I am. Is anybody here like afraid of fractions? Okay, thank you for your honesty. I want to get you away from afraid, okay? Mildly annoyed because they kind of take a little bit more work is what I'm shooting for. That's where I am with fractions. I don't fear fractions, but I want to avoid them if I can, right? So you want to pay really close attention today, because I'm going to show you a trick. This is an algebra trick that is going to allow you to get rid of fractions anytime you see them in an equation. Anytime, any type of equation, if you see a fraction, you can get rid of them. Okay, and you're going to use this not just here in algebra 1, but in algebra 2, you're going to have some equations with some really nasty fractions, and you're going to use this same method to get rid of them. We call it fraction busting. They call it other things other places, but this is the technique I'm going to show you. So before we do that, I got to teach you a couple little shortcuts about fractions. So this is really key that you guys pay attention to this part. Okay. So do you guys know this trick? Do you know what 2 times 7 over 2 is? Does anybody know what that is? What if I told you it was super easy? You don't have to think too much about it. Take a guess. The answer is 7, because this 2 and this 2, since you're multiplying and dividing, remember a fraction is division, they cancel each other out. It's just 7. Did you guys know this trick? So if you multiply a fraction by the number that's in the bottom of your fraction, they're going to just cancel. This is just going to end up being 3. Are you getting this down in your notes? Like, even if the fractions get a little bit bigger, like this is 7 over 11 times 11, that's okay. That 11 and that 11 are just going to cancel, and it's going to be 7. Even if I make the fractions huge and nasty, like this one, it's really easy. You don't have to think too much about it, because this is the same as the denominator. Multiplication and division cancel. The answer is 5,280. Isn't this an awesome trick? We're going to use this in a second when we have an equation with fractions to get the fractions out of the equation. Now this one's a little bit trickier because it does have positives and negatives. So we can't just cancel. We'll do that in a second. But think with me, what are we going to get when we multiply this negative number times this positive number here. What is our final answer going to be, positive or negative? It's going to be a negative answer. So go ahead and put your minus in there to remind you of that. And then cancel your 3's. And then we just got negative 13 for our final answer. All right, same idea here. We got negatives here. They're both negative this time. When I multiply a negative times a negative, I'm going to get a negative or a positive? Positive or a negative? Positive? Are we positive? That's okay. This will be a positive answer. Put a little plus there to remind me. The 24s cancel out, and 7's all that's left. So positive 7 for the win. Okay. Are you guys ready for the next level of this? It's only a small step up. Okay, you got this. Now, notice what's different about this one. Can we just cancel? No, they don't match. It's not the exact same number. But watch this. We can do this. It's going to be easy. Take this 8 and think about that 4 being underneath the 8. What is 8 divided by 4? If this had been 8 over 4, this would just turn into a 2. So scratch them out and just call it 2. And then multiply it times that 5. We're going to get 10. See what you can do with this next one. Instead of thinking about the 8 over 2, think about the 6 over 2. What is 6 over 2? 6 divided by 2 is 6 divided by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 times 3 is 24. All right, here's the ultimate one. We have negative signs here. Negative times a negative is going to give us what type of answer? Positive answer. Okay, now think about the 8 divided by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 8 divided by 2 is 4. Thank you. And then 4 times 5 is 20. All right. So keep that in mind. If the number matches, we can just cancel them. That's what we're mostly going to see. Sometimes we might need to think about the whole number being divided by the denominator. All right, let me show you how this works then, folks. Example 1 here. We're going to start the same way we started before. We're going to create an equation out of those two smaller equations. Can you guys show me what you know and put those two things together? Do that equal value step for me, please. Did you get an equation that look like mine? Could you do me a favor and put a 1 in front of that x, just to remind yourself that there's an invisible 1 sitting there? Now, do we want to solve this equation with that fraction in it? Not particularly. If only there were a trick that we could get rid of the fraction. Oh, well, there is though, right? What would you be able to multiply this fraction by so that it would cancel and you wouldn't have a fraction anymore? What would you multiply this fraction by to get rid of that 2? We would just multiply it by 2. We can do that. I can multiply that by 2. But the rules of algebra tell me if I multiply this term by 2, we got to do it to everything in the equation. So we're going to multiply everything in this equation by 2. Every term by 2. Now, terms are things that are separated by pluses and minuses. So I see 4 terms here, so we're multiplying by 2 in all of them. Now look what's going to happen here, folks. Look up here for a second. These 2's are going to cancel. So that's just going to leave us a 1x here. Now, none of these other 2's are going to cancel because there's not a fraction with the 2 on the bottom. So we're actually going to need to multiply these out. So what is 2 times negative 1x? That would just be negative 2x, right? Minus, what is 2 times 2? 4. Plus, what is 2 times 4? 8. Boom, no more fractions. So this is called fraction busting, what we just did here. We looked at the equation, we said, I don't want to deal with that fraction. That fraction's got a 2 in the bottom, so my strategy is I'm going to multiply everything in the equation by 2. Now that's going to cancel the fraction, so I don't have a fraction anymore. It didn't cancel anywhere else. We actually had to multiply by 2, but that's a small price to pay for dealing with an equation that has no more fractions in it. Can you put that away, please? Thank you. Go ahead and put it in your bag. Thanks. Okay, well, let's carry on. We know what to do from here. Solve it. Are you thinking about getting rid of the negative 2x or the 1x? What do you guys think? You want to get rid of the negative 2x? So I would need to do plus 2x on both sides. Or equals 1 plus 2 is 3x. And then we'll focus on this x and try and get it by itself. I would probably get rid of the 8 next. And then final step, rid of that 3. Were you all able to get x equals negative 4? If you're feeling confident, could you do the last step and figure out what y is? If you're not sure, pay attention here, I'll walk you through it. Remember, this is only half of our answer. One of the big mistakes people make when they're doing these problems is they stop here. We still need a y value, so we need to go back to our original equations and pick one of them. Which one looks easier to you, the top one or the bottom one? Top one doesn't have fractions. I like the top one. I'm going to go with the top one. I'm going to bring it down here, and I'm going to copy it over, but I'll leave the x out. Y equals negative. There was an x there. I'm going to put a blank parentheses, minus 2. And what are we putting in place of that x? We'll put our x value in there. Negative 4 is the same as positive 4. The negatives would cancel each other here, so that would just be 4 minus 2. Oh, I knew that's easy. I know what that is. 4 minus 2 is 2. Now we got an x, now we got a y. Folks, I need your attention really quick. Can everybody's eyes be up on the screen, please? Going forward, I would like you to write your solutions as a point. Okay, parentheses with a comma in between. And when we write a point, which comes first, the x or the y? X. We do them in alphabetical order. So our x was negative 4, our y was 2. So negative 4 comma 2 would be our final answer. So moving forward, go ahead and write them as a point. And be careful, double check, because it's easy to flip those around sometimes. Okay, we're going to do one more of these, but can you guys show me on your thumb meter this time? How are you feeling about dealing with these fractions? Are we like, I still hate fractions and I never want to see one again? Or we're like, I'm getting to the point where I believe that I can deal with these. Okay. Some of you are even like, I'm a pro, I could take the test right now. Okay, what I'm expecting is kind of in this range here. Okay. But as you practice this and you see more and more of them, you're going to get more confident that like, fractions, yeah, they're a pain, but I can get rid of them. So, and again, you'll be able to use this anytime you ever see an equation with a fraction in it. Okay, this next one is the toughest that I'm going to throw at you. Okay, probably tougher than you're going to see on a test. So if you can understand and do this, then you're great. If this is a little bit tricky for you still, that's fine. That's fine. You're not going to see many of these. All right, go ahead and do that first step. We know what we're going to do first. Do the equal value step. Take those two equations and combine them into a single equation. Let's do that step. Did you guys do that already? Some of you are ahead of me. Okay. Let me catch up to you. Okay. What's different about this problem? So what's different about this problem in terms of the fractions? Someone said fractions. There's two fractions, and what about the two fractions? Do they have the same thing on the bottom? They don't. So sometimes you have to do this fraction busting, sometimes you have to do it in two steps, but sometimes if you're tricky, you can get away with it in one. So here's my hint. If you have two different denominators, notice we have a 4 and a 2 here. When you do your fraction busting, use the bigger one first. 4 is bigger, so I'm going to fraction bust. I'm going to multiply everything in my equation by 4. And a lot of the times, this is, even though it doesn't match all of your denominators, this is going to end up busting all of your fractions in one step. So this 4 and this 4 match, so they cancel, so that fraction is busted. That's just a 1x now. This did not cancel, so I got to do 4 times 2, but that's easy. 4 times 2 is just 8. Now these do not cancel because they don't match. But remember what we did when we had a different number? Think about 4 divided by 2. What is 4 divided by 2? That is 2. So I can turn it into a 2, cross those out, and just do 2 times 3, which is 6. And then at the end, we got 4 times 3, which is 12. And there we go. We busted all the fractions. So that one was a little trickier because of this little move right here. We couldn't cancel, but we were able to divide 4 divided by 2 and turn it into a 2. All right, can you guys go ahead and finish that one up for me? I'm going to circulate around and answer questions. Let me catch up to you guys here. As I was walking around, most people got rid of the 1x, so I'm going to do that. If you didn't do this, if you got rid of the 6x instead, that's fine. We're going to end up getting the same thing for x. So 8 equals 5x minus 12. Most people then did plus 12 on both sides. And again, some people did something a little bit different, but as long as you're getting 4 for x, then that's all right. So this is 20 equals 5x, and then divide by 5 on both sides. Those cancel, and we'll get 20 divided by 5 is 4. So I saw a lot of people who got 4 for x, and that's fantastic. Now the last step is a little trickier, but we got this. I'm going to choose to use my first equation for my substitution because it doesn't have any negatives in it, but you could easily do the second equation and still get the right answer. I'm going to copy it down here, except I'll leave the y out. So y equals, I'm sorry, thank you for letting me know. Y equals 1/4 times x plus 2. So I took the x out. The 1/4 has to stay. Unfortunately, we're going to have to deal with fractions one more time, but it's going to be okay. Because when we put this 4 in here, look what's going to happen. 1/4 times 4, the 4 and the 4 match, right? Boom, those cancel. That's just a 1 now. Y equals, and you know what 1 plus 2 is. 4, no, 3. And then we'll write down our final answer here. X was 4, Y was 3, 4 comma 3. We got it. Okay. I do not have a big practice set for you to work on today. That means you get to jump straight into your homework. Isn't that awesome? A lot of you are going to finish this in class today. So notice that your first 6 problems involve fraction busting. If you are struggling at all with this, please, please, please get my attention. Give me an opportunity to help you out. Problems at the bottom of the page, 7 and 8 are going to be really important for what we're going to learn on Friday. So if you have any questions on 7 and 8, please, please get my attention so I can help you out with those. We did stuff like this last semester, but some of us are still catching up a little bit from that. And for some of us, it's been a while. So again, these are going to be super important for what we're going to do on Friday. So let me know if you have questions on those. On the back, we're just reviewing some products, some exponents, and some graphing. All right. Questions for the greater good? For the first problem in the homework, your question is on this problem. So after you do your combination step, I would multiply everything by 2 because that's the only fraction that you have. Yep. You could multiply them all by -2. That might make it a little bit more complicated, but it would work. As long as you're multiplying everything by the same thing, that's the rule, right? But I would probably just multiply it by 2 because after you combine them together, that's going to be the only fraction that you have, correct? Thank you for that. What was your question? Okay, I'll come around and help you out with the individual questions. Any general questions? Wow, you guys have a lot of time for this. That's great. So finish the homework, and then if you still need to finish up either of the 2 assignments that are up on the board that I'm collecting today, go ahead and do that. Make sure those end up in the tray with your first and last name and period 5 on them, please. All right, thanks for your attention, folks. I'll be around to answer questions.